I have the S23 Ultra and I've been using it for about a week now. And in today's video, I'm going to be looking at Samsung's latest flagship and seeing how it holds up and whether or not it's worth that money in your wallet. There's no doubt I'm a huge fan of the S22 Ultra. It's basically the phone that got this channel off the ground, and it's a phone that got me back into using Android devices on a day-to-day basis. So when Samsung announced the S23 Ultra, it was really easy to be blindsided by the fact that this phone was basically just an updated S22 Ultra with updated internals. This made a lot of people upset. However, it couldn't be further from the truth, and honestly, even just a short week with the S23 Ultra, there isn't even an Android device that I've used here in North America that comes this close to this level of performance and efficiency. This phone is rocking the new 8 Gen 2, and I don't really like bringing specs here up on this channel, but it's a really big deal. The 8 Gen 2 inside this device is designed for Galaxy, and it's in collaboration with Qualcomm, and it has a slight overclock, and theoretically, on paper, it's the fastest version of this chip that you can get in a flagship. Gaming is nice, smooth, and responsive. Multitasking is just fluid and quick, and the phone never even gets warm to the touch. Not to mention the battery life, which is an absolute godsend this year, which we'll get to later on in the video. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, a like and a sub to the channel would be greatly appreciated. We're getting really close to 15,000 subscribers, which is honestly absolutely incredible. So thank you all for the support that you've shown me. It means a ton, and I just can't believe that we're actually here in less than a year. It's mind-blowing. Anyways, going back to the design though for a second, I feel like people love to get caught up on it because it looks very similar to the S22 Ultra. However, there have been some quality of life changes that I think gave this phone a new updated feel that make it more comfortable to handle, like that display curvature. Instead of the more aggressive bend the S22 Ultra had, the S23 Ultra's display curves slightly less. The frame is also flatter, which gives you a little more to grip on whilst being comfortable to hold and keeping that rounded feel in the hand. I heavily prefer this design over something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max, especially if we're talking about a phone that's large. It just makes one-handed operation a lot more comfortable though. The downside though is that if you have a curved display, it makes finding screen protectors, or at least good screen protectors, very difficult. The cameras are also slightly larger and have an aluminum frame, which makes them look more substantial, and I think this is a nice touch. It's kind of the best of both worlds when it comes to protection and aesthetics, and I think it was done really tastefully. But other than that, you'd be hard pressed to find any major differences between the two unless you had them side by side. With the S23 Ultra though, you're getting a 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display at 501 ppi. Marketing buzzwords aside, the S23 Ultra's display is a very high resolution, though the QHD Plus display is not actually enabled by default out of the box. The phone is set to FHD Plus, and it's up to you if you think that extra hit to the battery life is worth the extra gain in pixel density. Though, let me be clear, when we're talking about smartphone display sizes, I think you'd be really hard pressed to actually notice a difference when it comes to pixel density. Another thing people love to point out and give Apple the immediate crown for though is display brightness. Yes, the iPhone 14 Pro Max can do up to 2000 nits peak brightness outdoors compared to the 1750 on the S23 Ultra. Does it make a difference? Not really. It depends on who you ask. I haven't really been able to tell, and I definitely don't have the equipment to be able to measure it, so I just don't really care. When it comes to indoor performance though, let's just ignore specs for a second because both displays look and perform amazing. And if I'm being honest though, when it comes to content consumption and playing games, I would have to give the win to Samsung for a nearly uninterrupted display and punchy, vibrant colors, which gives it a very pleasing experience. Of course, with that S23 Ultra, you still get that beloved S Pen, thankfully, and I really like to see it. I use it for annotating screenshots, making quick notes, even as a quick shutter if I want to take images for thumbnails. It's a very versatile tool and it's very, very handy. I'm not someone that actually needs the S Pen in my everyday life, and truthfully I can live without it, but I'm someone that actually appreciates that it's there, and I do use it from time to time, so I like it. It also makes for a pretty cool fidget toy. Another thing about the S Pen is that nobody can complain about needing to throw in a larger battery anymore, because with the 8 Gen 2, that 5000 milliamp hour battery that we've had for that substantial amount of time is finally sufficient enough, because we have a chip that is very efficient and is finally giving us the battery life that we deserve on these devices. I'm on track to hitting 10 plus hours of screen time on days with heavy usage, and that's something that's unbelievable from this lineup of devices from Samsung. With the S23 Ultra, the best that I was ever able to get was around 7, and now I'm hitting about 5 hours with 50% remaining. That's absolutely incredible. I'm gonna hold off though on making statements about the battery, because typically Samsung does the adaptive battery where they actually do adjust your battery life depending on your usage, and it does take a couple of weeks. So theoretically, the battery life could actually get better. So if you want to hear more about my battery life, stay tuned for some full reviews of this device later on. But yeah, if you want to learn more about this device right now, I do actually post my battery screenshots and other information about this phone as I'm just living with it in my day-to-day over on my Twitter at valismind. So I try to just post everything as, frequently as I possibly can to keep everyone informed. And so far it's doing really well, and I have absolutely no complaints about it. But I'm going to keep everything for my full review of this device probably in a few weeks' time. Lastly though, I want to talk briefly about the cameras. I'm not going to dive in too deep. I do want to save that for my actual review. But when it comes to marketing, I think Samsung really wants this 200 megapixel sensor to be the selling point. And it's impressive, but I don't really think that's what we should be focusing on here with this phone. These marginal upgrades that have been made under the hood have made a massive change to performance and efficiency. But I can't leave you all without some sample images that I've taken, so let's talk about them. When you shoot in auto, you're shooting 16 times crop on the 200 megapixel sensor. I think the images that come out of this are pretty damn good, and realistically this is how I and most of you will probably end up shooting most of our photos. Here's an example of the 3 times telephoto zooming into an apartment building. And then here's the 10 times telephoto. And then lastly, using the 100 times digital zoom at the tip top of the building because I didn't want to be creepy. You can see how good these images come out, and just having the versatility of this camera is unlike any other smartphone. Whether you think it's a gimmick or not, it just really gives you so much room and flexibility in your shots and makes it so much more fun to play around with. As for the 200 megapixel images, I'm not a photographer, and the images can really be hit or miss. Honestly, having this sensor is really cool because I think it's going to allow you to really learn how to take advantage of it and know when to use it. I don't think 200 megapixels is for every shot, especially in lower light environments. That being said, I'm impressed by the images that have come out of this phone. Even on the selfie camera, which got a downgrade, technically, going from 40 megapixel sensor all the way down from a 12 megapixel, this really just tells you that megapixels don't tell the whole story. Anyways, that's been it. I'm going to be doing a full review and a long-term review and every review that you can possibly think of under the sun of the S23 Ultra, because so far I've really been enjoying this phone, and I think that this is definitely one of my favorite phones that have come out in the last little bit, aside from the Fold 4, because that thing holds a very special place in my heart. But if you want to see a video of me comparing this phone to something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max, because you guys really enjoyed it when I did that with the Fold, I will have that video ready for you all. But anyway, that's been it. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like down below, subscribe for more content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.